Hello and welcome to Wednesdays with Evie, number 33, where today we're talking about capturing your thoughts or tasks and ideas. I had the order different in the description, so it's capturing tasks, thoughts, and ideas. When you see me look off to the side, that's me looking at my notes. So welcome. Sorry for the late start today. I was sidetracked and all of a sudden looked up and was like, oh, look what time it is. Time to get started. So here I am. So a couple of things I want to share with you before we get started, and I want to share this off somewhere else, so let me go and do that too. But one of the things I want to share with you is I have a freebie over at my website, oneinsightcloser.com, ONEINSIGHTCLOSER.com, and it is called How to Choose Priorities When Everything is Important. And I had one person who went and got it, and she told me that going through that exercise was like hitting the reset button in her business. So if that's something that you need, if you are feeling really overwhelmed with everything you have to do and all the things that are floating around in your head, head on over to the website and grab that. That is free for you, a free resource for you. And let's see if I can get this shared. Wait for it to pop up here. Another thing is, if you are not already a member, head on over to Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs and join us there. That is a Facebook group. It is free for you. It is a great place to go and just start to get in the habit of thinking about what needs to get done this week. And every Monday I ask, what's the most important thing that needs to get done? And on Friday I say, how did you do? And even people who are in the group who don't always answer the question and post the answer, they say it pops up in their feed and it makes them start to think about it, and as a result they're more productive throughout the week because they've been thinking about what's the thing that I need to get done this week, or even what's one thing that I need to get done today. So join us over at the Facebook group. And last but not least, the third thing today is, if you are somebody who, occasional check-ins on a Facebook group are great, but you want more directed help, you want to have some time one-on-one with me and be in a group of people who are supporting you and cheering you on and also offering you feedback and advice and support. Did I already say support? Because there's a lot of support. I have a mastermind group that has started that I'm still accepting members into. So if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. So that one is application only. So that means the application is having a chat with me. And if you just want to chat and find out more about the group, that's fine. We can do that. If you're looking to join us, for sure, let me know. But either way, let's have a quick conversation about it if it interests you at all. So let me share this out. Hi, Mary. Mary says she's listening and driving. Let me share this out to the event so the people in the event, or that said that they wanted to attend the event, can see it. So if you get my newsletter, you will know that, Thursday last week I was at a training for getting things done. It was a 2-hour introductory training for their day-long class. And I wanted to go and check it out and see if that was something I wanted to look at, see, what the training was about. I read Getting Things Done probably 2 or 3 years after it had come out in paperback and loved it. And as I said in the post in the email on Monday, it's something where you'll see its fingerprints in the things that I do. And going to the class reminded me of the things that I need to be doing a little bit better. So I'm sharing some of those things with you because sometimes these things, they feel like they're the simplest, but sometimes they're also the things that we let go of a little bit, and then other things start to break down a little bit. So today's topic is around capturing tasks, thoughts, and ideas. And it's exactly what it sounds like. How do we make sure that we're capturing the tasks and the ideas and the thoughts that we're having? How do we make sure that they're in a spot where we know where they are and we actually do something with them? So getting things done has a great methodology, that's the word, methodology around it. And I'm going to be touching on that a little bit, but it's really with the Evie spin on it. So I kind of take the idea and I run with it a little bit. So the habit that's involved in capturing these things is making sure it's getting written down. So when you have a thought that you want to be able to reference later, whether it's a to-do or an idea or something that you want to investigate later, whatever it is, you need to capture it somehow. And I say capture because it doesn't matter if you write it down or if you capture it some other way, it needs to be captured. So I might say write it down, but for you it might be giving yourself a voice memo. It might be putting it into the memo app on your phone. So whatever it is for you, make sure that it gets captured somewhere, recorded or written down somewhere. So when you're doing that, like I said, you want to make sure that it's the thoughts, it's the ideas, and it's the tasks. So the things to do are really easy to think about, right? You think about, I need to make sure I get this done, I need to write it down. The things that sometimes we forget about are the ideas that we want to reference later. I was listening to a podcast in the car, and the speaker made a really great point that I wanted to remember later, but I was in the car and I couldn't write it down. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And when I was doing something later, I was thinking, oh, that speaker had something really interesting to say about that. Where was that? But I hadn't written it down anywhere. So I couldn't go back and grab it. What I ended up doing was listening to most of the podcast again so I could find that point that he made and write it down so that I had it for a reference later. And it wasn't even the specific point that he made, it was the idea for something that I could do that sparked off of that thing he said. I mean, how many times do we have that happen where we have an idea that it's not really a fully fleshed out idea, it's not a complete project, but it's this idea that sparks off of something somebody else says that has maybe this much to do with this much of this idea that we have, but we want to capture that for later. So make sure it gets written down. In the past, what I've done when I'm in the car is if I'm in a spot where I can do it, I'll open the memo app and I'll record, just me saying what it is that I want to talk about. One time I couldn't really do that. There was too much traffic and I didn't want to be futzing with my phone. So my purse was right there. I pulled out a pen and I wrote 2 words on my hand because I could kind of write them down. It was probably ineligible to anybody else that was looking at it, but to me I knew what it meant. So then when I was home, I sat in the car and I jotted the idea down because then I was at a spot where I could do that. So figure out what works for you, whether it's writing on your hand, recording a memo, or something else. So obviously if I'm in a situation where I have my notebook, then I'll write, I'm looking over here because this is where my notebook is, then I'll write it in my notebook. So that's really the first part, is write it down, capture it, just so that it's somewhere that you need it. The second part is make sure that you don't have 10 places that you're capturing ideas. So the problem is we can write it down, but if we can't remember what post-it note it was on or which notebook it was in or wherever it was that we wrote it down, then it doesn't matter that we wrote it down because we can't find it. So you want to only have a couple of places, maybe 2, maybe 3 places that you're ever writing things down so that you know which places to go and look. So for me, I have my notebook. That's one place. And I have the memo app on my phone. So the memo app I use to either write ideas when I don't have my notebook around, but I always pretty much have my phone with me, or do recordings of me talking. And so then they're there. They're on my phone. I know that's where I go and I look if it's not in my notebook. The other thing here is so what do you do with it once it's written down? Once it's in your notebook, once it's on an app in your phone, whatever it is, then what? Because leaving them there isn't enough. So yes, you have them written down, but there's one more step. Because if you just have them written down, I know for me, if I just have it written down in my notebook or on my phone, that doesn't actually mean it's going to get done. For example, I was chatting with a friend of mine the other day, and she asked me to send her the link to a blog I had written, and I said sure, and I wrote it in my notebook, but I didn't go back and look at my notebook to see what to-dos I had captured there that hadn't moved over to my to-do app, my to-do notebook. And so all of a sudden I saw her 2 weeks later and I went, oh, I didn't do that, because I had moved on from the pages and I hadn't gone back and looked to see that I had captured this to do, but I hadn't done anything with it. So this is the third part. The first part is write it down. The second part is make sure you only have, 2 or 3 places where it gets written down or captured. The third thing here is process it. Put it where it belongs. So create a habit around this, whether it's after you've been out for the afternoon or at the end of the day. Create a habit where you look at these places where you accumulate these ideas and these to-dos and these thoughts, and you decide what to do with them. So if you have only 2 or 3 places to look, that makes life so much easier than trying to gather a bunch of Post-it notes or do something else. And I will say, if Post-it notes work for you, that's great, but you probably have a system around them that makes it work. So for a while I was using Post-it notes as a way to handle my to-dos. It didn't last very long because if the Post-it note got lost somewhere, then I lost it. It was off my radar. But if you have like a specific spot on your desk that you put your Post-it note reminders or thoughts, and that works for you, that's great. But just be careful that it doesn't end up where you have Post-it notes everywhere and you're not sure where they are. That's when the system starts to break down. So anyway, you want to, once at the end of the day or whenever it is that you go through these, you want to look and go through each item. So if it's a to-do, then you need to add it to your to-do list, wherever it is that you put those, whether you add it to your weekly list just so it's captured even if you're not going to do it this week, or if you add it to tomorrow's daily list just because you're going to do that quickly tomorrow or even today. You want to move that so that it gets done. If it's an idea that you're capturing for later reference, do you have a spot where you keep those ideas? So I have a program on my computer called OneNote. It's from Microsoft. It's similar but a little different than Evernote, and I know a lot of people really like Evernote. And I'll keep a bunch of my ideas there. And I like to keep them there just because I can search for keywords and things will pop up. So because I've been using this for a while, this is why when I created my Productivity Mastery course earlier this summer, when I went through and I was creating that, and I was searching my OneNote for ideas and thoughts that I had that I wanted to incorporate into how I laid that program out. Because I had been capturing ideas there, I found that, 5 years ago, I had created a rough draft of this program. And I was able to go through and use that. I had actually written out almost maybe half of some of the teachings that I did with that program. I had written them out 5 years ago, or had bits and pieces of them in other places that I was able to pull in, because I had a place where I was capturing these ideas. So have a place where you're capturing these ideas, whether it's a journal or a notebook or something online, something on your computer that makes it easily searchable. Make sure that there's one spot where these ideas for later go. I'm just checking my notes to see if there's something else I want to say about this. Okay, so the last thing for this section is if it's something that needs to be thought through a bit more, maybe add that to your list. So for me, there's a podcast on it's not even a podcast, it's a masterclass. So this woman that I follow online once a month does masterclasses on different business topics where she'll bring on experts that she works with in her business, or people she works with, and she'll teach part of the class and then she'll have them teach part of the class. And they have, she has I just recently started following her, and so she had some previous topics that I wanted to listen to. And I listened to one and I got so much great information that I, got all written down that I want to process, right? So I have this idea for some things that I want to do, but it's not completely thought out yet. So I added to my to-do list to, review my notes from that and just pull anything out that I might want to do going forward as a result of listening to that podcast. So, and like I said, it's not really a podcast, the masterclass. Hi, Rochelle. I'm still pronouncing it wrong. So, Rochelle. I think I got it right the third time. You'll let me know. So, anyway, whatever it is, if you're adding something to one of your to-do list though, the second one, okay, good. Rochelle. All right. So if it's something that you're adding to your to-do list, make sure that you're not just putting down podcast or masterclass. Make sure it's something that has an action associated with it. So listen to January's masterclass from this person. Create a system around, or think through, something that gives an action. Write this, do this, complete that, something that is actionable. Add that verb to it. So it's just not a word that you look at and go, that's a whole project. That you're specifically saying, this is the thing that needs to get done. This is what I'm going to do with it. And sometimes, yes, that task is create the list of things that need to be completed for XYZ. So an easy one is updating a website. So instead of just writing down on your task list website, you want to write down create the plan to update the website. So maybe you're just updating your About Me. Maybe it's been a while and you're updating your About Me. So instead of saying updating About Me, think about what are the steps that need to happen in there. So maybe the task is write out the steps to update the About Me. And then you break that down into pieces. All right. So what else do I have here in my notes? Okay, so how the habit might break down. And I know these because I have experienced these. So there is no guilt, there is no shame if you are experiencing these or you have experienced these. So one of the ways that the habit might break down is if you think, oh, it's just a quick task, I'll remember to do it later. Because that email that I was going to send my friend, that's exactly why it didn't get written down past the notebook. Oh, I wrote it down here, I don't need to move it over into my to-do list because I'll just remember to do it. It didn't happen. So, make sure that not only do you write it down, but then you process it, that then you move it to the to-do list, to the ideas list, whatever it is that you're moving it towards so that it's captured in a place where it belongs. Make sure you're taking the time to do that. When you start not writing things down, then that's when things start to fall through the cracks. And as David Allen says, Your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. That is one of my absolute favorite quotes from David Allen, because in my experience, it is absolutely true. My mind is so much better at having ideas than it is at holding them. So the second way it might break down, and this is also, I alluded to it, is you didn't do part 2. So the first part it might break down is you just don't write it down at all, and it doesn't end up captured at all. And then the second way it might break down is you don't move it to you don't process it, you don't take it to the next step and put it where it belongs. So make sure you're doing both of those things. I know that it's really easy to get busy and not want to do those things, or to leave them off to the side. The gentleman who led the 2-hour intro class, he said that, so he's married, he now has 2 kids, and his wife ended up in the hospital for the last 2 months of the pregnancy, and the baby was born early and spent like the first 2 months of her life in the hospital. And he said things were crazy because his wife's in the hospital and suddenly he was a dad of a 2-year-old and his wife couldn't help out because she was in the hospital. So he's working full time, he's taking care of his daughter, and he's trying to make sure that both he and his daughter get to the hospital on a daily basis to visit his wife. And he said at that's the point where a lot of people would go, you know what? There's just too much going on. I'm not going to bother to deal with some of this stuff because there's just too many other things going on to focus on. And he said he did the opposite. He decided that at this point he needed to double down on his getting things done habits. And he said it was so helpful because he didn't have to worry about, was there something at work that he wasn't taking care of, or was their daughter getting the support that she needed or getting taken care of, because he kept the systems all in place. He kept writing down things that needed to get done and processing them and making sure he had an accurate to-do list, and it made all of the difference. He said it wasn't easy, but it made it more manageable because he knew what needed to happen when. Some of you have heard me talk about my, I'm just going to say someone close to me who has not immediate family, but family, who was in the hospital last year. I'll just go ahead and say my father-in-law. And he was moved to a hospital that's maybe about a half hour to an hour away from our home. And so my mother-in-law came and stayed with us while he was in the hospital, just because it was easier to get to the hospital from our house than from their home in northern Indiana. And because I knew the things that needed to get done and what my responsibilities were, I was able to quickly assess what was going to get done, what was not going to get done, and make adjustments as needed so that I could be there for my family. And I still had time. I didn't go and see him absolutely every day, but our home could be the kind of base of operations for family, and I could be much more flexible with my schedule because A, I worked from home, and B, I knew what needed to get done. And because of that, I was also a member of an organization where I had various responsibilities, volunteer member of an organization where I had various responsibilities, and I was able to reach out to them very early and say, okay, this is what's going on, and I know that I'm not going to have the time and the attention to give to this, so, you're going to need to figure this out and make adjustments so that you can find other ways to get this done. So I was able to adjust their expectations of me because I knew, based on the things that I wanted to get done and what my priorities were, I was able to quickly assess what I could get done, what I couldn't get done, and then share the new expectations with the people it affected so that they weren't last minute, lurched into, how are we going to handle this? Evie's not answering emails anymore. What happened? We don't know. What's going on with this? I was able to be in the front end of that and say, I'm not going to be available very much because my father-in-law's in the hospital and that's where my priority is right now. So he did get better. He did come home. He was in the hospital here for 2 weeks. But it made all the difference that I knew what these things were that needed to get done. So make sure that you know what needs to get done. So I'm going to go through the comments here now. So I believe, Mary, you commented this when I was still talking about writing things down. And she says, I always remember to do it when I'm not where I need to be to get it done. It doesn't count if I remember to send an email when I'm at Trader Joe's. Yes, Mary, I experienced the same thing where I am somewhere where I just cannot take care of something, but that's what's on my head. Yeah. So yeah, writing it down or making a note to yourself, that's super important. So if anybody has any questions, please pop them below and I'm happy to, you write things down, but you have lists all over the place. Yes. So writing things down is good. You want to have your lists only in a couple of places. So I was doing some research, so I have binders on top of everything right now. I think my other notebook is actually downstairs right now. So I have 2 binders. So I have this one, it's backwards, but this one that I do for my daily lists, Rochelle, and I have another one that looks similar to this, but it's not this, that I keep my master list in. And so that just means that anything that's happening today is written in this. Anything that's happening this week is written in the other one, or it also keeps my list of everything that I want to get done, whether it's immediately or just I want to have it recorded for something that I want to do later. So I have a couple of ideas of things that I want to do, or maybe marketing things I want to do, or programs I want to offer, or whatever it is, that even if now is not the time for them, then they're captured somewhere so that I know what they need to do. And those can be also places to capture not just business things but personal things, just so that everything's in one spot. And if paper doesn't work for you, that's fine. I'm not in a position to suggest electronic methods of doing that, but I know there's a lot out there. Excuse me. So Mary says she has trained her family, if I'm driving a car and remember something, I'll tell them to send me a message. Oh, that's a good idea. So yeah, you can just say, hey, can you text me this? And then it's captured for later. Yeah, I like that. If I'm a passenger in the car, then usually my husband is driving. So, but I really like that. That's a good idea. Good way to capture that. Any other questions or comments before I sign off? How do I tie my list to my overall goals so I'm really moving toward my end goals? Okay, so that goes into a little bit more of goal setting and planning. I'll touch on it briefly. So about once a quarter or whenever I need to do it, I'll write out my intentions and my goals. So I have maybe a little different take on intention and goals than most people. An intention for me is I want to make X amount of money. I want to work with X number of people, because those are things that I am not completely in control of. So working with X number of clients, I can't control, I can't force somebody. I don't want to force somebody to say yes to me. So I say those are intentions. These are things that I would like to happen. And then I set up sub goals under those. So if I want to make X amount of money this month or this quarter or this year, what are the goals that I have control of that will help me reach those intentions. So it kind of breaks down, how am I marketing myself? What am I offering? That kind of stuff. So it might be, speaking. I want to speak at X number of places. So I want to reach out to, the goal might be reach out to 10 places, 5 places, and, offer to speak for them. Or I want to network and be in front of X number of people. So which groups am I going to go to on a weekly or monthly basis that put me in front of that number of people who are also a good percentage of my ideal client? Things like that. I hope that helps a little bit, Rochelle, so that I know that the goals that then I map, the projects and the tasks that I'm mapping out that need to get done, they tie into the intention that I have for where I want my business to go, or what the income is I want to make, or who the people are that I want to meet with or work with. My to-dos are very rarely one-offs, so they usually tie in to some way to the intentions and the things that I want to do. Yeah. So we can chat about that later too, Rochelle, if you'd like. So, and Mary says she's usually good at knowing about electronic note-taking apps. So if anybody's interested, they're welcome to reach out to me. Yeah. The thing you have to watch out for with electronic, not note-taking, but the thing to watch out for electronic to-do lists, not note-taking. Yes, go and talk to Mary about note-taking. But with the to-do lists is they change so frequently that it's hard to stay on top of them. I know a couple of them that I had tried out like 3-4 years ago that I thought were pretty good, but just not quite for me. I don't think they exist anymore. I think they folded. And I also know that there's a couple of people who, just because I was Googling it the other day, there's some people who feel that because there's so many getting things done apps out there, that getting things done isn't maybe the best way to do it. I think really it speaks more toward how popular getting things done is, that there's a good number of people that are creating apps to try to harness the people that are interested in implementing it. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Best Self Journal. I know for myself, I've found that I work best on pages that I create for myself. So that's usually the one thing that I recommend to everybody, is figure out what works for you. So, the things that work really well for me might not work super well for you. However, the tenets are the same. Have a master list, have the things that you want to accomplish this week, and the daily list, I also recommend too, but there are some tweaks to it that, it just depends on your type of business and how you work. So, like the daily list, I know somebody was saying that I was working with somebody who her day shifts so much that she's not always sure how it's going to go. So with her, it was talking about, okay, in the morning, create your list for the morning, and in the afternoon, early afternoon, create your list for the afternoon. Some people, they just have 3 things. This is the most important thing to get done today. Here are a couple other things I want to get done today. And those are kind of their guiding lights for the day. So maybe they'll get more done. Maybe they'll only get those 3 things done. But if they get those 3 things done, then they know they've had a good day. And for me, I like to kind of map out my day. AM, the end of today, I'll write down, AM, what am I doing tomorrow in the morning? What am I doing tomorrow in the afternoon? Just so that I have that checklist for myself. So, and Mary says her number 1 electronic to do is a Google Calendar. I type notes on my calendar. Okay. Again, do what works for you. Putting my to-dos on my Google Calendar does not work for me. It drives me crazy. But if it works for you, that's all that matters. So do what works for you. All right, we are over a half hour, so I am going to wrap us up. If anyone wants to reach out to me and has any questions, type them below or reach out privately. I'm happy to chat with you and kind of go through some of this stuff with you. Trying to think if there was something else I was going to say. I think I covered all my notes on the topic, so we're good. So quick reminder, if you want to head over to the website and get the freebie, How to Choose Priorities When Everything is Important, you can do that. There's the Facebook group, Productivity for Women Entrepreneurs, and there's the mastermind, the weekly mastermind, where if you want any more information on that, then reach out to me and we can have a conversation just to see if it's something you're interested in. If you've been with me for any time, I'm sure that you know that I am not a high pressure salesperson, so feel free to reach out just to get some more information about it, and I'll be happy to share that with you. So that brings us to a close to episode 33 of Wednesday Live with Evie. So today's topic was capturing tasks, thoughts, and ideas, and I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Much love.